Hello, everyone. I am the fantasy commissioner. Today, I actually was going to do this tomorrow, but um, it's a very urgent situation, obviously, with COVID, and that's a lot of the bulk of what's going on here in this stream is going to be talking about COVID-19 and how our league is going to handle it. I'm also going to be talking about just some information about the draft. Um, Typically, the way I like to do our streams is I like to do the easy, quick fluff stuff first, and then I like to save all the important, big stuff for the end. However, in this stream, I'm going to, because I want everyone to watch it and have time to watch it and get what they need out of the COVID portion, because it's a big deal what's going on, and we have to make some decisions and make them quickly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over some options, kind of talk about the COVID-19 in relation to our league, um, give some options that I've come up with. And then what I'm asking is if anyone has any ideas other than what I've come up with, try to get those to me by Monday. Either call me and we'll talk about it. You can text me, whatever. Um, and then once I get all that stuff put together, then we're going to do a vote and figure out best how to handle COVID-19. So, so let's just jump in here. So obviously, with the whole COVID situation, some players, when they contract it and go on the COVID list, are on this list for 2 weeks. Um, Now, originally, the way in my head, because Yahoo hasn't fully addressed this, and this may change, but again, Yahoo has not um, addressed the COVID situation. In my understanding, the way I thought it was going to be, if they were on the COVID list, they'd be considered IR. Uh, so originally, I wanted to do an IR upgrade where we are at 3 IR slots. I wanted to upgrade to 5. However, looking at the list, every player that is on the COVID list isn't put under an IR situation. They're put under an NA situation, which means not active, which means they are not eligible for IR. So upgrading our IR wouldn't help at all. Um, Now, Ross and myself actually talked about this the other day. Excuse me. Um, he's actually kind of the one that really brought it up with concerns. And he gave me a couple ideas, which one of those is in here. He gave me another idea, which I have to look up what it was. It had to do with giving a certain value to a player if you didn't have them, if you were basically so short that you didn't have a player. That's not logistically a bit available to us um, at all. As far as putting in stats or anything like that, I can't do that. So what we can do are a couple options. Um, so the first option is obviously leave as is. We'll have a roster of 24 players with 3 IR slots. Um, Obviously, we could, like I said, upgrade to 5. That's the max you're allowed for IR. But in this situation, unless something changed with Yahoo in regards to the COVID handling, um, it's not really a viable option. So option one is leave everything as is. And if you have someone on the COVID list, you have someone on the COVID list, I guess, for 2 weeks. They would not be eligible for you to use. Option two and three are the two that I feel best about. So we're going to go over them. They're similar and different. So option two is expand the roster that we have. So currently we have 24. The max players you're allowed that we would actually be able to, if we were to upgrade this, expand it, is 30. So that'd be obviously 6 more than we currently have. So what I'm suggesting is expand the roster to 30. Also, we would just draft those 30. Um, so it'd be 6 extra rounds, obviously, in the draft, and then we'll just keep the IR at 3. Another option, very similar, is to expand the roster, draft the players with no IR. Um, Originally, when I actually, so you guys, when I originally was writing this, I actually thought the roster size was bigger. Um, so I personally think number two is the best option. Option four is expand the roster, but we would leave 6 empty spots. Now, the way this would have to work is because we put in a roster spot, we set a number. They're expecting 30 slot. They would expect 30 slots drafted. Yeah, Yahoo. So what I would have to do is um, we would put our draft our 24, but I would actually put in. I would just slot in the draft. I would slot in 30 guys for each team, and then we would have to go back in after it's submitted as a final result, and then pull those 6 per team out. The only other issue with doing this route is we would really have to police it, and that could really get complicated as far as all of a sudden someone's on COVID, they add someone, that person comes back, then they don't drop them. So it's an option. I don't know if it's a viable option as far as, like I said, it's a lot of policing that has to go on there. Um, Fifth option, and this was one that Ross brought up actually, and it's not a horrible one, but again, it would require a lot of policing. Um, a player, so if you get a player in the COVID list, you would drop that player and pick up another player, and that player would be untouchable. Um, but I guess my concerns with that option are so a player comes back from COVID, but we want to wait. We don't want to pick him up just yet. Like that becomes a concern. Someone accidentally picking him up becomes a concern. Um, Shoot, sorry. There, I had one other thing on that thought. Another idea, though, and this is more of a be mixed into the expanded roster option. If we expand the roster, I also suggest that we expand quarterback size to from the 3 that we currently have to either 4 or 5. Because at this point, you're basically just drafting backup quarterbacks. Now, the idea behind that would be, or the hope maybe, is the people would actually draft their backups. So, for example, you have, I'm trying to think of a backup quarterback. This is a bad example because they're actually both kept, but just play along. So, let's say you have Dak Prescott as your quarterback, and then you would actually pick up Andy Dalton as one of your guys who's obviously Dak Prescott's backup. Obviously, he is kept. He was just acquired in a trade to Will. That was just a random example. It's the first one that popped in my head. Um, so again, going back, I think expanding the roster and all this understand is a 1 year thing. This is only a reaction to the whole COVID-19 situation. Um, I just see concerns. I have concerns. Ross had concerns. I'm sure others have concerns. Um, if you could end up with multiple people um, in the COVID list, and that could really decimate a team. Not for a season, obviously, but it could really, really devastate a team for 1 week or possibly 2 weeks. And with the IR not being effective for COVID, if they wouldn't be able to pick anyone up, so they'd have to drop people. Um, like I said, we could go the route of drop player and then they're untouchable, but then there's a lot of stuff we gotta work in there with that. Um, the empty slot one isn't a horrible idea. I mean, like I said, that was actually my original slot thought was that one until I really started thinking that I could see that getting taken advantage of. Not that people do that in our league, because I think our league is a pretty. I think we have intangibles. People are pretty trustworthy, but I could see accidents happening. All of a sudden they have 27 guys in their roster, and they should only have 24. Um, I hope you guys have other ideas other than what I've just put up with or come up with. Um, but again, from what I came up with, I really like option two, which is expand the roster. We draft 6 additional players, and keep the IR at 3. So for 2020, we would have 30 players on a roster. Um, and like I said, I would like to also see the quarterback expanded just for 2020, just to because obviously the quarterback is going to be the one that is hit the hardest if they all get COVID. So that's all I wanted to cover with the COVID. Like I said, I'd like to have people come up with ideas. And we have a ton of people in our league that always come up with phenomenal ideas. So I'm reaching out to all of you. Reach out to me hopefully by Monday. Just drop me a text and say, hey, here's an idea, or flat out call me. Now, once that all happens, once I have your guys' ideas mixed in with mine, then what I will do is next week, I will contact each of you individually and we will talk about the COVID options and then we will get your vote. And it's as always, it's this one can't be a push. That's the only thing. So we'd have to figure out there, and I think we've handled those pretty well. If they're tight votes, we've sometimes eliminated a few and then go back and revote with less options, and that always works pretty well too. So, like I said, get me whatever your suggestions are. Um, if they're viable as far as through Yahoo, um, then we'll do them, and if or we'll look at doing them, and if it becomes something that's not a viable option, and I can tell you if it's not or not, or if it is or not, then we can either play with it or just that's not an option. So that's the COVID. Um, Another one in relation to this is back when this league originally started, I put in what's called the Barry Sanders rule, and we've never had to use it. What the Barry Sanders rule is, if a keeper retires anywhere between when they are kept and the time of our draft. So once the draft starts, then they are not eligible for the Barry Sanders rule if they were to retire. Like literally, if that happened after a draft. But anyway, so the Barry Sanders rule is if they retire before our draft, you are allowed to go back and pick up pick up a player off your previous year's roster, which would be 2019. And we've never had to use this rule. However, due to COVID, and it's not obviously a retirement, but it qualifies in this class of what it was meant for, is the 2020 opt-out rule. And Jordan was the one that we had to use it for. I could see potential of more, and we're going to find out either today or tomorrow is the deadline at 4 p.m. for the entire league if they decide to opt out of 2020. So hopefully, um, none of our keepers opt out and um, we just keep everything as is. But Jordan had running back Damien Williams opted out for 2020, so he went in. He decided to keep Christian Kirk. Now, by doing that, Damien Williams does become eligible in the draft. That is also food for thought. Um, Damien Williams is a good running back, um, and obviously he would have had great fantasy value had he been playing. He's not. Um, it makes sense for Jordan to drop him. I'm going to throw in a random example at you where someone may want to consider, I'm just going to hold on to it. Now, if you hold on to them, they take up a roster spot. That's the only thing you have to think about. So if you're a team that's in the heat of it and it's like every roster spot counts, you may want to almost let that player go. I mean, there's exceptions. For example, Will acquired Saquon Barkley. If Saquon Barkley decides I'm going to opt out of 2020, uh, pretty sure Will's not going to want to replace that. He's just going to eat the roster spot, and I could be wrong. But but again, here's what to think about. If you have a player that's that good, um, and they opt out, and you decide to pick another player, and they get released into the draft, for example, Saquon Barkley, he could not play this year. I guarantee you he would go somewhere in our first round. Would he be the first overall pick? Probably not. He would be in the first round. He would be gone, and someone just eat the roster spot for 2020. So that's something to think about. So you don't have to, but if I see a player, I will go to you if I see, or you, if you, unless you come to me first. But if I see a player that has opted out, I will contact um, your team if you have one of those players and say, would you like to invoke Barry Sanders' rule? And if you do, which player would you like to keep from your previous season um, roster? So that's that. That's all the big stuff I had to really get out. Um, and the reason I wanted to rush that is because if there's someone that just I don't want to watch this whole stream, which I'm trying not to make the stream long. It's currently about almost 6:30 in the morning. Of course, I worked all night, but I wanted to get this out. So now we're going to cover the rest of the stuff that I want to get done. Um, so I want to quick talk about the draft kits for this year. Of course, as always, the draft kits are something I like to work on and put together for everyone to hopefully make their draft experience pleasant and successful. So this year's draft kits will include um, a draft guide um, with tabs like I had last year. This way you can just easily flip to the position that you want to look at. Um, it will also include a program, which always does, and that basically just tells who's all going to be here, and it gives a quick synopsis of what's going to go on during our draft. How for example, the Hall of Fame, all that kind of stuff in order. So it'll also come with a draft order list, like I did last year. I did that last year. I think that helps out some people. They know who's around them, who's drafting around them. So maybe they can say, um, Mark really needs a running back in this spot. He's drafting right behind me. I was thinking about waiting, but maybe I need to jump on this running back now. So um, it'll also, as always, it comes with a bye week schedule. Excuse me. And all that is just so you can see what NFL teams are off. Um, the biggest one that affects is usually the quarterbacks, the kickers, and obviously team defense. Because obviously, if you have two defenses with the same bye week, you might as well drop one of them. Uh, it'll come with two draft sheets, which of course those are where you will put down who you draft, and you keep one copy and I get one copy. Um, we will also include this year a 2020 game schedule, which is just who you're playing and what weeks. You'll have a Hall of Fame class list, which we'll get to in a minute, but it'll have all the classes since our league started the Hall of Fame in 2015. It'll have updated AFL contact list, which I think the only real true update on there is going to be Efren. If I remember when I did, his number changed from when I did our meeting contact list. Um, but of course, always on there will have their email address. Um, I think sometimes I used to have if they were on Facebook or not. I may have removed that. Um, and it will also, and I did it last year, and I don't know if it helps, but hey, a little extra information doesn't hurt, right? It'll include your team's um, draft list from last year. So you can look down and see where you drafted certain players, maybe where you went wrong drafting in a position, maybe where you went right to help you maybe look at either repeating or not repeating um, those type of picks during this draft. So that covers the draft packets. Um, Next, let's see. Sorry. Normally I have this a little more streamlined, but pre-draft show, um, the draft, the pre-draft show. So that's the red carpet event. I started that during the meeting. So at 4 p.m., I'm going to start streaming a pre-draft red carpet event. Um, basically it'd be a preview of the draft as people come in. If they want to come in and talk to me, like last year, I had Jimmy was talking to me. We had Mark, Guy got involved. Dennis got involved. Um, trying to think. I know Tony when he got in here, he started talking a little bit. So hopefully now maybe we'll get some more people actually up on the microphone, other than kind of in the background. But um, I think that was a fun little thing to really get people ramped up for the event, and then that will go till from 4 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. At 5:30, I'm gonna go off the air for about a half an hour. That's probably when I'll grab a bite, talk to some people in here, and then at 6 o'clock is when we're gonna go live for the draft. And I'll get into that in a second. Um, the room draft setup will be no different than normal. We'll have the four back rows and then the four chairs. There's always the round chair. I'm up at the front, and then there's a chair between or on the other side of the TV for me. And then we'll have a row going down the side, kind of along where I'm sitting. It'll be a very similar setup to what the meeting looked like back in February. Let's see. There is a vote we're gonna have, and I mean we could even consider doing this one if you guys wanted. We could even do this before the draft, and it's a minor thing. So obviously we did the draft lottery. We decided to keep that, and last year we came up with a number. Well, I've added Easter eggs, so we're actually up to 300 Easter eggs, which is not quite double from what we had last year. We had 160. So I'm going to come up with some numbers as far as options. It'll help give a better chance to the team that had the worst record, and give a little bit less chance to the other teams. Randomly, right now, I doubled it. What I just to see what it looked like. I doubled it. So, but I doubled it and then had to reduce. I think it was two off each. So I have those numbers here. One second. Um, I know I had first place, or first place, well, it'd be last place, had, here it is. So, if you have the worst record would get 78 Easter eggs, 58 for 15th place, 14th place would get 48, and then 38, 26, 18, 14, 10, 6, and 4. And I'll come up with more options than that. If someone else wants to throw some numbers at me too, feel free. That's 10 spots, and we have 300 Easter eggs. And my goal is every year I'm going to get more eggs. The reason I got these, I was able to get these at a really low cost after Easter. And I'm going to do the same after next year's Easter. We have 300 Easter eggs to work with for the 2021 um, meeting. Um, let's see. I'll come to that last. Um, I'm kind of wavering on how I want to do the clock. Now, last year we did a 25-second clock, and then we lowered it down. When I did the ABL draft, we did a 20-second clock, and that's what I want to do this year is probably the 20-second clock. Um, However, I've also thought about, and I'll get your guys' opinion on this when I talk to you about the COVID. I've also thought about going back to what I did a few years back, where we won't do a clock, but there's still going to be a time gap between picks. So what I would do is I would just manually insert the picks as they happen into the computer, and that does take me a little bit of time. It might even take me a little bit longer than 20 seconds to do it. Um, but it would give a decent break between that as well. So that's an option. So we can go 20-second clock between picks, or we can go no clock between picks, but I will manually insert them, and that'll take up the difference. Um, and then, of course, at 6 p.m., like I said, we're going to have our pre-draft. So there's the pre-draft red carpet event. That's just kind of like a sit down, talk to people as they come up. 6 o'clock is the pre-draft. That's where um, we just talk about a few last minute things. If there was a vote, uh, emergency vote, we do them then. Our Hall of Fame presentation takes place there. Obviously, we have the intro video, which this year's theme um, of the league, the league's theme in 2020 is Bring Home the Glory. So we have that, and then we also showcase some of the top prospects. And this year we're calling our prospects pop stars. So everyone wants to have a pop star on their team. And this is probably one of the best years to have a pop star because there's a lot of them in this draft, especially at the receiver um, and the top end running back position. Um, so by 6:30, we will actually be drafting. Um, Usually, I try to shoot through it. I always say a half an hour. Sometimes we finish within 20 minutes. So that's that. Speaking of the Hall of Fame, this year we had a Hall of Fame committee, and we're in our final stages. We've started back in June, and we've whittled down to um, our final 20 in two categories. So in the NFL this year is last year was the 100th season. This year is the 100th year of the NFL. So I decided to do something special and add some little intrigue to our Hall of Fame. So we have our normal 10 modern day players going in. Well, 9 players and one owner, which was voted on back in February at our meeting. So 9 players are eligible or going to go in for the modern era. I added a senior committee. Now, the senior committee is the opposite of the modern era. So, the modern era is anyone who's played in the league, in our league, since its existence, which was 2014. I would just always use Ed Reed as the example because Ed Reed retired in 2015 but never played in 2014. So, he was never eligible for our um, league's modern era. However, he was eligible um, for the late era for the senior committee. So the senior committee this year will have 10 players going into the senior committee. And going forward, there will be senior players going in every year. The way it's going to go starting in 2021, there will be 7 modern era players going in, 2 senior committee, and of course the one owner. And I will actually tell you guys who. Now, first of all, I want to say the Hall of Fame committee. Um, Very honored to have these gentlemen. And I am going to expand. There's a few other people I've kind of been thinking about adding to the Hall of Fame committee. Um, I want to have people that really know the history of the game. That's kind of the big thing. Um, and that have been around for a while that have hopefully been able to see a lot of these senior committee players. So I think I have a good group of that currently. Like I said, there are a few people. I have a couple people I would like to reach out to and ask to join to be part of the committee, and I actually may do that for this final vote as well. But um, here's who's on the list. So we're going to go with the modern era first. So there's 20 in each category. In this list, 9 individuals will make it to the final Hall of Fame. So the final nominees for Hall of Fame 2020 are safety Adrian Wilson, guard Logan Mankins, kicker Sebastian Janikowski, tackle Joe Staley, quarterback Andrew Luck, running back DeMarco Murray, center Max Unger, linebacker Luke Kuechly, tight end Vernon Davis, guard Marshall Yanda, wide receiver Greg Jennings, tackle DeBrickashaw Ferguson, running back Chris Johnson, kick returner Devin Hester, linebacker David Harris, cornerback D'Angelo Williams, linebacker Derek Johnson, tight end Antonio Gates, safety Eric Weddle, and finally Eli Manning, quarterback. Those are the 20 finalists for the modern era 9 will make it in off that list. For the senior committee list, now this one was fun. And next year, originally I had intended doing this year. The final vote will not take place over the way it's going right now. This year, they're just texting in to me who they want. I really wanted to have, but the COVID really screwed a lot of this up. But I really wanted to have in-house, and I would stream it. We would sit down and we would break these guys down, and we would figure out as a consensus group, just like they do the Pro Football Hall of Fame. When they do the final vote, they have the individuals, and they go through a room and they vote on all of them. They discuss all of them, and it makes you think. Someone will stand up and say, "Well, I really think that this quarterback should go in over this quarterback, and here's why." And then they give their opinion, and then someone else says, that's a good, that's a good reason to put them in over this player. So that's something I was hoping to have, and I thought that'd be a really cool discussion. And the senior committee would be so much fun to do, to hear the stories about these players and people's thoughts on all these players. So hopefully in 2021, there will actually be the senior, or will be the actual Hall of Fame vote will take place live, in house, on the stream. Here's the senior list finalists: quarterback Joe Montana, wide receiver Jerry Rice, tight end Tony Gonzalez, linebacker Ray Lewis, defensive back Deion Sanders, running back Walter Payton, quarterback John Elway, linebacker Junior Seau, quarterback Dan Marino, linebacker Dick Butkus, running back Barry Sanders, quarterback Roger Staubach, defensive lineman Reggie White, linebacker Lawrence Taylor, tackle Anthony Munoz, running back Emmett Smith, defensive lineman Joe Green, running back Jim Brown, safety Ed Reed, and safety Ronnie Lott. And 10 of these individuals will make it into our 2020 Hall of Fame class. So that's that. That's the Hall of Fame. Um, where did I go? Food wise, this year, of course, everyone, and we were able to. Tony was able to get the pork. We're doing the pulled pork again. But that didn't give it away. He was able to get the pork before all the meat prices went up. So we're still going to be able to maintain that $5 per person fee, and we think it's a very good value for what you get. Um, we'll have the pulled pork again with buns. We're gonna have barbecue sauce. Um, I learned I don't need to bring in as much barbecue sauce, but we'll have a good variety for everyone. There'll be plain. There's I think there was a brown sugar honey barbecue. For sure, definitely gonna have the chipotle. We'll probably go with the devil spit as well. That's a pretty good one. Um, and there may have been a hickory or something. There was I don't remember them offhand, but those were the most popular ones. So um, Amy will also be making the queso dip as always, with tortilla chips. That's always a big hit. Potato salad. We'll have coleslaw and baked beans, um, and we'll also have cupcakes probably this year, maybe instead of the cookies. Um, for a dessert sweet item, I will be making the draft punch again, which is a combination of, it's real simple, but it's so good. 7 Up, Hawaiian Punch, and pineapple juice. We mix it all together. We call it draft punch. And I can't confirm this, but I'm going to do my best, everyone. I'm going to make winners out of all of us, and we're going to try to get Sandy's mac and cheese again. So that's food for this year. Again, the um, $5 on that, as always. Um, almost done here. Let's see. We have just a reminder on some of the 2020 rules. The oh shoot, where'd that go? The list. I hate not having the word for it. But remember the quarterback, as always, or as we started last year, you can only draft. You can have 2 starting quarterbacks at the draft. but there was a rookie exemption on that. So, for example, if you already have kept your two quarterbacks, so you have Aaron Rodgers and Daniel Jones, they're the two starting quarterbacks, obviously, for their teams. Um, but then you go and draft Joe Burrow, who will be starting for Cincinnati. That's three starters. However, there was a rookie exemption, so you can do this and not be penalized at all. Um, However, there is a three quarterback um, maximum. So um, that's that. I'm sure there's a rule I'm forgetting. I'm going to be doing a stream with a special guest on August 22nd. And on August 22nd, we're going to do a stream where it's going to be a draft preview. And I'm very honored to have this individual join me for the first time on air. Of course, we've had Jimmy in the past, we've had Mark in the past. Um, Tony has been um, live via Skype. We've had Guy via Skype. Um, Will Baldry is going to be joining me on August 22nd, uh, and we're going to break down a draft preview. We're going to look at um, top players in this draft. Um, we're going to look at team needs. So we're going to break down each team and say, here's what they have, here's what they need. In that process, we'll look at possibly who could that team owner be taking with that first overall pick, or wherever they pick in that first round. Um, and I'm sure we'll have other things on the agenda. We'll go through the rules one more time just to make sure everything's clear, and we'll obviously break down. By then, we'll have a confirmation on the COVID stuff, so that'll be all wrapped up there. Um, but yeah, we're gonna look at position grades. We'll look at team needs, what they should consider rushing as far as drafting. Um, I'll give a quick reminder if anyone needs. I'll give a quick reminder of what you're getting in your draft packet. Reminder of the 2020 rules. I'll have that sheet actually in front of me so I can read verbatim. We may do a quick 2021 preview. Of course, next year's the big one where we're only keeping 5 people. So that's going to make next year's draft ultra, ultra important. Um, and we'll look at maybe some of those 2021 traded picks that took place because there were some big ones that took place. Some big winners in our league as far as raking in those early first and second round picks. Um, and then we will also, and he doesn't know this, we're going to do a one-on-one with Will, and we're going to put him on the hot seat. And we're just going to talk some of the trades that he's made, look at his team history, which he may not know about fully, because obviously he took over Joe Miller's team um, 2 years ago, and he took a team that was the last team to make every year in the playoffs, was always a contender, and but um, it was an aging team. He took it over his first year running it. It wasn't as strong, but he turned around. He's got a strong team going into 2020. So we're going to talk to him about that. Um, and we also may take a look at this golf outing. Um, I'd like to do a golf outing next year, and hopefully I can get, I know I understand that everyone golfs, not everyone's good, but as many people as we get to go, I think it'd be a good way for us to bond. And my thought process on that would be, and this is going to be talked about at the meeting. I'm just throwing this out there as people think about, is at the 2020 or the 2021 draft weekend, we would do the golf outing that weekend. Um, that's all I got. I'm getting tired here. I'm actually it's kind of probably rambling on, but I wanted to get that COVID stuff out there. So you got a few days, everyone. Try to get you up till Monday, and then after Monday, I will start contacting you all individually over the phone, probably. I'd rather do this talking as opposed to texting it, if that's a viable option. Um, any thoughts, questions, concerns, let me know. And with that being said, I'd like to say thank you for watching the stream and take care, everyone. And we will see you real soon here at the Fantasy Commissioner, August 22nd. Guest Will Baldry. Take care, everyone. Have a good night or a good morning.